Hey everyone, this is Curb Knight, bringing you another deck profile. Today we're going to be taking a look at my Ezel build. Specifically, this is kind of an order Ezel build. So I think I said this in a couple of the videos, but I do consider Ezel to be a very fun deck. It's very fun to play. It's fun to style on your opponent, riding up to grade 3 before they even have the chance. But overall, the deck is, despite the fact that you ride up, the deck is actually very slow, considering that it relies on your opponent to actually get to grade 3 before it can do anything of its own, meaning that you're just kind of waiting for your opponent to get to that point, and until then you're kind of just a vanilla deck. Even though you have access to Persona Ride, if you miss out on Persona Ride on your turn 3, I guess, you tend to lose a lot of steam in the deck, and it can be very difficult to recover from that. As for how this deck is in the meta, I think that it's okay. It has a pretty decent early game. I mean, like, turn 3 Persona Ride is nothing to joke about, and in this meta, an early game is super essential in order to beat a lot of decks. But that being said, I don't think it is consistent enough to actually be a super high yield contender. Maybe once we get the dog promo, this deck definitely goes up like a tier, just because that dog promo is absolutely insane. But until we get that, we're just stuck with this. But this is still a very good and fun build, so let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the ride line, we do have, of course, a Crimson Lion Cub Criff. You do actually have to play this one. Just like Avant-Garde, you do need the Criff in the soul in order to actually use skills. Next up, we have Knight of Elegant Skills Gareth. When he is ridden over by Bowmains, you search your deck for one Reign Supreme King of Beats, reveal it, and add it to your hand. It does also get is a 10k if it's ever on the rearguard circle, but that's probably never going to happen, so we don't really need to worry about that. The fact that this searches out an order is basically the reason why I kind of wanted to build the deck this way, which we'll talk about once we get into the order that he searches. And then, of course, next up is Knight of Superior Skills Bowman. If on Vanguard, if your soul has both Gareth and Criff, you can discard a card in order to ride up into Incandescent Lion Blonde Ezel as stand from your ride deck, and then it gets drive -1. So basically, Bowmains is your method of superior riding. What this essentially does is it basically skips you to your next ride phase, because you still do have to discard the card in order to ride up, which honestly, in a lot of testing, if you don't get the specific combo where you can basically get pitch fodder, this is very minus. The fact that you go to turn 2 and you have to discard 2 cards, I mean, sure, you do get to grade 3, but you're essentially basically on grade 2 since you only have one drive check. So it's a little bit hard to make up that advantage. So your turn 3, or your turn 2, I should say, I need to stop thinking like this is a normal deck. Your turn 2 puts you at a severe minus, and you do need to be able to kind of recover from that, because even though your opponent might just be rating up to grade 2, they can still probably put on enough pressure to the point where you're kind of struggling going into your next turn. Then, of course, we do have the main boss unit, Incandescent Lion Blonde Ezel. So, of course, for whatever reason, you can only ride cards with Ezel in their card name. I don't know why they did that. I guess they don't want you doing any shenanigans. But at the beginning of a ride phase, if you have 3 or less units, do remember that is units, so you can only have 2 rear guards in order to use this ability, because your Vanguard does count as a unit. You Soul Blast 1, check top 3, and choose 1 grade 3 or less from among them, call it an open rear guard, and the rest go to the bottom of the deck in any order. Do remember that this is kind of like Youth, you don't actually shuffle. That skill is okay. I sometimes use it. The biggest issue is that it uses soul, and we have a lot of things in this deck that are competing for soul, so sometimes you don't want to be using this, but this card is pretty decent, because we can actually, or this skill I should say, you can call another copy of Persona Ride and then bounce it to your hand, which is a pretty fun play to do. Anyways, the second skill is his main offensive skill. When he attacks a grade 3 or Vanguard, which is unfortunate, you can counterblast 1, check top 7, choose 2 grade 3 or less units from among them, call them to open rearguard circle, and then he gets another 10k, and then of course you shuffle the deck after. The biggest issues with this is the fact that your opponent has to be on grade 3, and the fact that you have to call to open rearguard circles only. That does mean that you need ways to clear out your rearguard circles, which we do play quite a few, and the promo is definitely your best target to clear out your front row rear guards. I guess I forgot to mention that Bowmains can also clear rear guard circle when he attacks. If you have Ezel Vanguard, he gets 5k and goes to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn. We're not playing any in the main deck, so we don't need to really worry about that. Alright, so getting into the grade 3s, we are obviously playing the 3 copies of Persona Ride. I almost said 4, but we are actually playing 4 in the form of Gradius. So Gradius, of course, is another copy of Persona Ride, and the reason I think that this card is actually very good in this deck, as opposed to like something like Forbidal, which is definitely an amazing card, or even like the Evergreen, is that this card is actually searchable, and having a Persona Ride that is searchable is just very good for this deck. And then of course the only other grade 3 we're playing is the order. This is the order that you search off Gareth, the Reign Supreme King of Beasts. So if you have an Ezel Vanguard, check top 7, choose one grade 3 or less from one, call it to rear guard, it gets 5k, and then of course you shuffle the deck. So you do search one off, which is very good, but I always find myself like, if I could play this every single turn, I think that this deck would be absolutely goated. But unfortunately, unlike every other order build, I guess, or every other, what are they called, encounter deck, Ezel doesn't have a way to get its order back, which if Ezel could get this order back, I think that the deck would actually like jump up in power like just a little bit more, because like Vermilion, you can play it from the drop zone, Lukier can play it from the soul and recycle it into the soul, and even like Maelstrom has that one card that can fetch orders back, and they do technically stick around for a little bit, although they don't really do anything. But yeah, I do. Drawing into the second copy feels really good. I almost want to play more copies of it in the main deck, but the issue, of course, it is a brick. It is technically searchable, which we'll talk about probably next in the grade 2s, but I think that just at 2 copies gives you enough space for everything else that I want to play in the deck. Alright, so moving on to the grade 2s, we do have to start off with 4 copies of the best new card that we got in December and January. That is the promo Knight of Insightful Eyes, Azlatus. Okay, so this card is actually insane. When it attacks, if you have Ezel Vanguard, you choose one of these effects to perform. Either you choose your Vanguard, it gets the skill, the red text skill that all your front row rear guards get 5k until end of turn. But if you did choose your Vanguard, then this unit has to go to the bottom of the deck at the end of that battle, which normally might be a bad thing, but of course remember this is Ezel, so we need to clear our circles, so he does a good job of clearing our circles. And do note that that is part of an effect, so if you use him with a Dindrain behind him, you can put him to the bottom of the deck with Dindrain's skill to pay the cost, and then of course his skill will resolve after. And the other effect, which is also pretty good, when he attacks, you can also choose one of your back row rares with only Gold Paladin in its clan, and at the end of the battle you return it to the hand. So you could theoretically add Dindrains back to your hand if you're scared of them getting retired, but the main reason we would use that skill is to bounce any Persona Rides that we superior call, meaning that in a sense our Persona Rides are also searchable if we can call them off the top. But this card is just absolutely insane. If you stack them over and over again, do note that it gives a red text skill, so you can give multiple red text skills to your Vanguard, so you can give it another 5k, and then you can get basically a full Persona Ride if you just give, you know, your Vanguard 2 copies of this skill, and then you can also call them off the top and use them there. So just really good card. Next up, probably the second best card in the deck, of course, is the 4 copies of Forefront Knight Tennis Sleeplaw, whatever it's called. We'll look at it regularly because the FFR is actually absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, but of course it's very difficult to read. But basically, when she is placed on rearguard other than by a unit card's ability, so if she's called off Ezel, you can't use the skill. If you've played a normal order this turn, which is very easy to do, we have, if you call her off Reign Supreme King of Beasts, you can proc this skill automatically because she's placed by an order card's ability, and you've also played an order this turn. So you, when she's placed, you Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose one card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard from among them. At this point, if you call her off this, you're always going to be on grade 3, so it doesn't really matter. You're always going to be able to call anything. You call it if it is a unit card, and then if it's a normal order, you add it to your hand, meaning that she can either call basically anything out of your deck, or she can add you one of these 3 order cards to your hand. You can add Persona Ride, you can add another copy of this, which is just really good. Most of the time, she's just going to be calling another unit. She allows you to basically build a board for free, kind of making up some of the advantage, because if you ride up to grade 3, you play this, you have like no board, you call this, you use her skill, Soul Blast 1, and then call another thing. You basically just got 3 units for free, or 2 units, I guess, just by chaining calls. And then she does also have this really good skill, which unfortunately is locked behind your opponent being on grade 3, where if she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if you have 4 more units, so that's just her and 2 other rear guards, because obviously your vanguard counts, she gets another 10k, so she's a 20k attacker. Put her under persona ride, that makes her 30k. Add another 5k from the promo, that's 35, not including a boost, so she can actually reach some really insane numbers. I think with the boost she tends to get to like 43 or 48, so just really good card overall, just so good for the deck. It is absolutely just real insane how good it is. And then for our last grade 2, this is kind of the flex slot. I couldn't really think of what to put in here, but we do have just like 2 copies of this gal, the Magic of Alteration Turnar. She is at the end of the battle that she attacks while boosted. If your damage zone has 3 or more face down cards, put into soul and countercharge. So we actually don't really care about the countercharge. If you play this deck correctly, you can manage your counterblast fairly easily, but what she is here is honestly just to be a soul charge. She is just there to, you know, be soul, and sure, countercharge is nice, and she's just a nice attacker. I might actually replace her with that new grade 1 from set 13, where when it's on placed by a card ability, you get a soul charge too, because I will say this deck definitely has a ton of soul problems, and it's mainly because of this card, and then of course Ezel's skill, so you just use up way too much soul in this deck, so that's why she's in the deck basically. Alright, moving on into our grade 1s. Of course, we do have to start with the 4 copies of Dindrain. Just an overall very good card. This is technically another card that competes for soul, but we never use a skill. When she's placed on rear, if you have an Ezel, or not Ezel, a Vanguard with only 1 clan, you can Soul Blast 2 and countercharge 1. Almost never use that skill. There are no situations where I actually need CB desperately, but it is there. Honestly, you need the soul more than you care about the CB. But the main reason we're using her is that at the end of a she boosts, if you have a Vanguard Ezel Vanguard, you put a rear guard with the same column from the same column on the bottom deck and stand this unit. So basically what she's here to do is you call her, you boost her, you put the thing that she boosted on the bottom of the deck, and then you restand her so that you can call something else in front of her with Ezel's skill in order to, you know, multi-attack. So she just enables that. She's the only way you can get rid of grade 1s or Tefnuit, because the only card that we have that removes itself is of course the promo, but she is just really good to basically clear out our columns in order to multi-attack. Let's see, next up we have the Order Searcher, so Knight of Brave Advance, Cadigan. Very good card, 4 copies. So he is exactly like the other Order Searchers that we got in set 11. If you played normal order, he got 5k, so he's a 13k base, helps hit really good numbers, and when he's placed on rear guard, doesn't matter from where or why or how, counterblast 1, search your deck for 1 uplifting hem, reveal it, add it to your hand, and then if you search the deck, of course you shuffle. So thanks to the fact that he can add from drop, we're only actually playing 1 copy of the Uplifting Hem. I guess we can go over it, but it is just a play with Soul Blast 1, so another card that needs soul in the deck, although I will say you don't play this very often. And then you choose 2 of your rear guards to get plus 5k until the end of turn. Then you can technically discard a card in order to add it to your hand, but most of the time there really isn't a reason to do that, unless you want to be playing an order every single turn. But most of the time you don't actually have the soul in order to facilitate this. But basically what this card is here to do is to help kind of stem the bleeding from riding up to Ezel. So what you do is you want to have this in your opening hand, you take your 1 damage, you ride up into what's his name, Bowmains, and then you call this and you counterblast 1, you search the hymn. What you do is you take the hymn and you throw it away so that you can superior ride into Ezel, and then you play of course your Reign Supreme King of Beasts, and you superior call out her, and then you use her skill to Soul Blast 1 again, and then call another unit. So basically you have a board of 3 units, and you didn't minus as much. So this card is honestly just in the deck to be pitch fodder, and that is basically its entire role. Technically, there are a lot of fun and cheeky plays you can do with this, because Dindrain is a restanding Vanguard, or not restanding Vanguard, restanding rear guard. So what you can do if you have double Dindrain, you can actually play the order and give both of them 5k, meaning that you have restanding 13k boosters, so you can go Let's say she's boosting to 10k, so you can go 23, restand, call something there, 23, 23, restand, 23. So it does technically have some utility outside of just being pitch fodder, but most of the time you don't actually have the soul to facilitate it, and it ends up being just like not good enough or not worth it, unless you want the extra 5k here, because if you give him 5k, then he is an 18k booster, which is, I hear, not terrible. But I guess continuing on, we are of course playing one copy of Cat. Cat is just so good. Whatever deck you have, if you do not have a cat in it, what you need to do is you need to cut your worst card and you need to put a cat in, because cats are the best. So when it's placed on rear or guardian circle, you choose a total of 2 cards that were in your ride deck, put them face up, which is very easy to do with this deck because we're superior riding and soul blasting a whole ton. You just put them from your drop zone. So if it's on rear guard, you check the top 3 cards, or top 5 cards of your deck, and you choose 1 unit card with grade lesser equal to your Vanguard from among them, call it to rear guard, and then shuffle the deck. If it's not your main phase, you rest that called unit. There is a very funny interaction with this card because of the way it is worded. So Ezel superior call actually happens during the ride phase, which you may have noticed is not the main phase. So literally, if you go Ezel superior call from the top, call this thing, use its skill, check top 5, call something, the thing that you call off of this is rested because it is not the main phase, which is just so funny. I mean, they wanted this to like prevent like multi-attack shenanigans, because like if you could call this during the battle phase, you'd call another thing. But it is so funny that they worded it that way, and Ezel can't really use it as effectively. But you know, that aside, it is the main reason we care about Cat is that it gets a 15k shield while on Guardian Circle, and 20k shields are absolutely amazing, and you should always be playing a Cat in your deck, and if you're not, you're bad. Anyways, continuing on, of course, we're just going to be finishing off with the PGs, playing the 3+ Elementario. Very typical, very standard. Yeah. Alright, just finishing off with the trigger lineup. Of course, we are opting to play critical triggers. I am playing 3/7 crit. And I do want to mention that you do probably want to play Blade Feather Angel, just because, like I said, you do have a lot of soul issues in the deck. 7 crit, and then we're actually playing for draw. Like I said, this deck can lose a lot of advantage, a lot of steam. Front triggers would be definitely good for being a 20k shield, and the timing is not awkward because you're kind of calling. Even though your first 2 swings don't have the front trigger power, you do call 2 more things in their place, which would be getting front triggers, since you do call before you actually do your drive checks. But I find draws to just be that much more important. They're really good pitch fodder too, and you do need to dig for your pieces, and basically you need to draw more cards in order to survive, because Ezel alone on his own does not really make any hand advantage, I should say. He makes board advantage, which there isn't really a way to translate that into hand advantage at the moment. You could use something like Painkiller Angel, but like I said, this deck already has soul issues, so I think just playing draw triggers is the best way to actually fix that hand issue. Of course, we are just playing 4 regular heals and blue OT, because Keter OT is kind of dog, and blue OT is just the best OT to actually play. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and finish off the video with a quick test hand. So let's check the top 5 cards of the deck. So Dindrain, very good. We'll probably keep that. We also have the promo, meaning that he's pretty good. This we want to be searching out, and we don't really want triggers in our opening hand. What we actually want is the grade 1 that searches out the order. So hopefully we can draw into that. We're going to mull 3. 1, 2, nice. That's exactly what we're looking for. 3. This I don't fucking care about. But anyways, let's go ahead and start the game. Going first is definitely where you want to be with this deck, because you know you're going to be swinging at a grade 1 Vanguard, which is always cool. So we have a copy of this. We'd prefer that she stays in deck, but you know, drawing her is also pretty cool. I hate this card. I don't think I want it, so we're going to discard that right up into Gareth. Of course, we do need to take 1 damage here, so we're just going to take a damage, and then we're going to draw for turn. We have a draw trigger, so we're probably just going to pitch that. And then I'm just going to speed things up and ride and call using his skill to counterblast 1. This is basically the play that you always want to be going for. You search 1 order off of Gareth, and then of course this guy the grade 1 will search you out your other order. I wish I could search that. Where is my order? Here it is. So we're going to be searching out 2 orders, riding up into grade 2. So basically going, is that +2? Well, technically no, you -1 to ride up, so that is a +1 with this card's skill. Now, of course, we're going to take that +1 and we're going to convert it into our superior ride, discarding the him. Unfortunately, we can't actually add it back during the end phase because you have to play it. And then, of course, we don't want to play that. What we want to play is our Reign Supreme King Bee. So what we're looking for is a copy of the Tefnuit, because that means we can totally just chain it. So we check top 7. Let's see, we have 5, 6, 7. Although I think I know already what we want to be calling. So we're going to call her. Since I have played an order this turn, she's gonna get 5k off the order. Since I played an order this turn, I can Soul Blast 1 and then check top 5 again. In this instance, I'm probably looking for a copy of the promo, because that is something that would be good here. Basically, what you want to do is you want to call 2 columns that can get rid of each other, or that can be, you know, get rid of things. Another good call off here would be a Persona Ride. What was that? I didn't get Persona Ride at all. I would have been able to bounce it with the copy of this that I have in my hand. But basically, this is already your setup is pretty much done. Once your opponent gets to grade 3, you'll be able to multi-attack, because if you remember, we have a Din Drain in our hand. We can put the Din Drain behind the Tefnuit. In fact, I think we might just do that to hit better numbers, because our opponent is technically still at grade 1 at this point. So I'd probably swing Vanguard first, because it is actually unironically the weakest number. This is hitting for 23, this is hitting for 18. So we drive check 1. Unfortunately, not really what we were looking for, but it is fine. We can go 23. What we can do here is, I probably wouldn't do it. You can use this in order to give 5k to the front row and then make this a 28 column so that it hits even better numbers, but you're losing out on this guy and you want to actually use his skill. So what I might actually do in this situation is just go 18 at the Vanguard and then swing this and then actually bounce the Drain to my hand, preventing it from being removed, but you know, also keeping a little bit of hand advantage. So our opponent rides up to grade 2, they swing Van, just take the damage, assuming they're actually able to hit, because do note that they're at 10k. Unless they get a trigger or commit a booster, they can't actually hit, or if they have some way of giving their Vanguard another 5k. But we're actually in a little bit of a pickle here. We didn't draw into any Persona Ride. So what we actually could have done is like intercepted with this in order to get 3 units. And then now, since we have 3 units, we can Soul Blast 1. As you can see, we're already running low on soul, so what we're looking for is a Persona Ride. So very cool. We can call the Persona Ride off that, and then basically, I'm not sure what we would do here. Probably just swing 2 times here. We can go swing Van, drive check 1. Oh wow, I got another Persona. Drive check 2, crit power, and then we can go 1, 2. Bounce the Persona Ride to the hand, and then we're ready for next turn. So now our opponent is finally at grade 3. They're going to be attacking us a little bit more aggressively, guard a few times. They're probably going to try and take this out because this card is really good, but since we do have another copy, we don't really care. So we're going to draw for turn. In this instance, we do have to decide how we want to use our soul. What I'm actually looking to do here would be really good is if I could call another copy of this, but unfortunately I think we have 2 in damage, so it's not really likely. I could add the order back to my hand and play the order, which would allow me to call more units off this. But since I think I have the extra soul, because I'm going to be Persona Riding anyway, I'm going to Soul Blast 1 and check top 3. Oh, I basically got exactly what I wanted. We call that Counterblast 1, and then we can add this to our hand. Unfortunately, I think that we are running a little low on soul. That does not get shuffled yet. Do not forget that. So even though I would like to use this skill, oh wait, before we do that, don't forget you do have to Persona Ride, draw another card. So we have 1 soul to work with, meaning we can either use this or the him, which I think in this instance I am actually going to be using the him, because I think I should just call this behind Van in all honesty, because I can go 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to use my 1 soul on this actually. So we're going to play it, Soul Blast 1. We're going to have 5k here and 5k here so that this hits better numbers. So we're under Persona Ride, so this is going to be swinging for 25, thanks to the 5k from the him, and then using his skill to give the Vanguard the 5k to the front row, meaning that he's hitting for 30, which is a 20k guard. Now, of course, at the end of the battle, he does have to go to the bottom of the deck, which is perfectly fine, as we're going to be swinging this one. She's a 13k plus a 10k under Persona Ride, that is 20, and then she gets another 10k from her skill, so that is a total of 43 at the Vanguard. Then at the end of the battle, we're used in Drain skill, bot deck this, and now we have 2 open front row rear guard circles. So we'll swing with the Vanguard, counter blasting 1. Actually, this is one of the few situations in which that witch girl is actually useful. Oh, what do you know? There she is. So I'm gonna check top 7. Of course, I don't really want to call a cat, so I'm probably gonna call this and this, so that we can actually empty out our columns again and get ourselves ready for next turn. It would have been nice if we could have gotten a copy of the promo, because we could have given another 5k to our front row units, but at this point we're already at plus 15 with our Persona Ride, and we still have our drive checks. So drive check 1, another Persona Ride, drive check 2, the promo that we would have preferred to call off that. So we can go, this is a total of 23 on its own, 33 with Persona Ride, and then 38 with the skill of the promo. And then of course, since I do have 3 face down damage now, honestly that's what this card feels the best for, just getting face down damage so you can actually use her skill. Put her to soul, counter charge, and then of course we have this other column which is still hitting for, was that 43 again, and then I probably bot deck it just to get rid of it and make preparations for next turn, because I have a lot of good units that I want to call in their place. Alright, so that's going to do it for my Ezel deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is definitely a very explosive and a very fun deck to play. If you have the money or the cards lying around, I'd recommend you build it, play it a couple times. It is definitely a blast to play. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to do all these YouTube things, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.